What if the story you were chasing turned around and swallowed you whole? What if you spent years traveling to the darkest places on Earth, showing the world the truth, only to disappear into a nightmare so complete that even your own government couldn't bring you back? This is not a story about war correspondents who got lucky. This is the story of one American journalist who thought he could film the truth about North Korea and simply walk away. He was wrong. And today, more than 7 years later, we still don't know if he is alive, or what is left of him inside one of the most brutal prison camps on the planet. If this story touches you, please subscribe to the channel right now and hit the like button. It helps more people hear these truths. And if you're new here, welcome. You're in the right place for stories that matter. Now, let me take you inside what really happened to David Harlan. David Harlan was 51 years old when he made the decision that would define and possibly end his life. He was not a reckless young adventurer. He was a seasoned investigative journalist with more than 25 years of experience in some of the most dangerous corners of the world. He had reported from the front lines in Syria, embedded with rebels in Afghanistan, documented cartel violence in Mexico, and exposed government corruption in Venezuela. His work was respected. His articles appeared in major publications, and he maintained an active Facebook page where he shared raw footage and personal reflections from the places others were afraid to go. To his followers, he was a man who believed the truth deserved to be seen, no matter the cost. But North Korea was different. For years, David had read every book and watched every documentary he could find about the country's political prison camps. He had spoken with defectors who described starvation, forced labor, public executions, and entire families in prison for 3 generations because of one relative's crime. He had seen satellite images of the camps, vast fenced areas deep in the mountains, guard towers, and tiny figures working in the fields. Something inside him refused to look away. He believed that if more people truly understood what was happening inside those camps, the world might finally pressure the regime to change. And he believed he could be the one to show them. In early 2018, David told his wife Laura and their 2 children, Emily and Michael, that he was going to North Korea. Not as a journalist on assignment, that would have been impossible, but as an ordinary tourist. He had found a Chinese travel company that organized tightly controlled group tours into the country. The itinerary was standard: Pyongyang monuments, the metro, a school performance, a visit to the DMZ. David smiled and told his family it would be safe. He had done riskier things before. What he did not tell them was that he planned to bring hidden cameras. He spent weeks preparing. He bought a small, discreet action camera and modified it so it could be hidden inside the lining of his jacket. He practiced filming with one hand in his pocket. He studied every public photo and video of North Korea he could find, memorizing what was allowed and what would get a tourist arrested instantly. He left detailed instructions with a trusted colleague in case something went wrong. On a cold morning in March 2018, David Harlan kissed his wife goodbye at the airport and boarded a flight to Beijing. From there, he would join a small tour group heading into the most closed country on Earth. The first days in Pyongyang felt surreal. The city was clean, orderly, and strangely quiet. Their North Korean guides, always 2 of them, smiled constantly and repeated the same scripted lines about the greatness of the supreme leader and the happiness of the people. David filmed openly when he was supposed to and secretly whenever he could. On the subway, he captured the tired faces of ordinary citizens. At a market on the outskirts of the city, a place tourists were rarely taken, he filmed thin people quietly trading small bundles of vegetables and homemade soap. He noticed how quickly people looked away when they saw foreigners. He noticed the fear in their eyes. One afternoon, during a carefully staged visit to a collective farm, David managed to slip away for a few minutes. What he saw shocked him more than anything he had witnessed in war zones. In a distant field, groups of people in faded clothes were working under the watch of armed guards. Some looked barely able to stand. When one man stumbled, a guard shouted and struck him across the back with a wooden stick. David filmed it from behind a building, his hands shaking. He knew he was looking at political prisoners, people whose only crime might have been listening to a South Korean radio broadcast or trying to escape the country. That night in his hotel room, David lay awake for hours. He had come to show the world the truth, but the truth was heavier than he had imagined. Still, he told himself he had a responsibility. He had seen it. He had the footage. He could not unsee it. On the final day of the tour, everything fell apart. The group was scheduled to take a train back toward the Chinese border. Before boarding, security officers at the hotel conducted a routine baggage check. David's heart pounded as they opened his suitcase. They found nothing unusual at first. Then one officer picked up his jacket and felt something inside the lining. Within seconds, the small camera was in their hands. David tried to stay calm. He said it was just a souvenir camera he had bought in Beijing. The officers did not answer. They took him by the arms and led him out of the hotel, while the other tourists watched in stunned silence. What followed were weeks of intense interrogation at a detention facility in Pyongyang. David was questioned for hours every day. They wanted to know who he was working for, which intelligence agency had sent him, and what he had done with the footage. They accused him of being a spy sent to undermine the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. When he insisted he was only a journalist trying to show the truth, they laughed. In their eyes, there was no difference. The conditions were harsh from the beginning. His cell was small and cold. The food was a thin corn porridge twice a day. He was allowed almost no sleep. Bright lights stayed on at night. Interrogators alternated between threats and false promises of release if he confessed. David held on as long as he could. He thought about Laura and the children. He told himself that the United States would find out and pressure for his release. He was an American citizen. These things did not happen to Americans anymore. But they did. After nearly 2 months, David was brought before a court in a closed session. The trial lasted less than an hour. He was found guilty of espionage and hostile acts against the state. The sentence was life imprisonment with hard labor. There was no appeal, no contact with his family, no possibility of early release. The judge looked at him without emotion and said the words that ended David Harlan's old life forever. He was transferred at night in a windowless van. When the doors opened, he saw the high fences, the guard towers, and the endless rows of barbed wire. This was one of North Korea's political prison camps, a place the regime pretended did not exist. Guards stripped him, shaved his head, and gave him a faded uniform with a number. From that moment on, he was no longer David Harlan, American journalist. He was prisoner 4721. Life inside the camp followed a brutal rhythm. Prisoners woke before dawn and worked until long after dark, 12 to 14 hours in the fields or in the camp's small mine. The food was barely enough to survive. Cornmeal soup, sometimes with a few leaves of cabbage or weeds the prisoners managed to gather. Those who could not meet their work quota received even less. Beatings were common. Public executions happened when someone tried to escape or was accused of stealing food. Informers were everywhere, even among the prisoners themselves. David's body changed quickly. He lost weight. His hands became rough and scarred from the labor. In the freezing winters, he worked without proper clothing, his feet wrapped in rags. In the summers, the heat and insects made every day a torment. He watched other prisoners die from exhaustion, disease, and malnutrition. Some simply gave up and stopped eating. Others were taken away in the night and never seen again. At first, David tried to stay strong. He told himself stories about his children. He replayed memories of family dinners and holidays. He prayed. But as months turned into years, hope became harder to hold. He heard rumors that the United States knew where he was. He heard that high-level talks had taken place between Washington and Pyongyang. For a brief time in 2019, there was even talk of a possible deal, but nothing happened. The North Korean regime used him as leverage in larger negotiations over nuclear weapons and sanctions. When talks collapsed, David remained exactly where he was, forgotten by the outside world. Inside the camp, he sometimes spoke with other prisoners. One elderly man had been there since the 1990s for the crime of listening to South Korean music. A young woman had been imprisoned because her grandfather had tried to defect. They all carried the same look, a mixture of exhaustion and quiet acceptance that this place would be their grave. David realized that in North Korea, once you entered the camp system, you almost never left. By 2023, David Harlan had been inside for more than 5 years. His hair had turned mostly gray. His body was thin and scarred. He no longer knew what his children looked like as adults. He no longer knew if his wife still waited for him or if she had been forced to move on. Some nights he allowed himself to imagine rescue, American Special Forces, a secret deal, anything. Most nights he simply tried to survive until morning. In early 2025, a small group of prisoners attempted an escape. They were caught within hours. The guards made everyone watch what happened next. David stood in the freezing wind and saw the consequences of hope. After that day, something inside him changed. He stopped counting the years. He stopped imagining rescue. He focused only on the next hour, the next bowl of soup, the next day of work. Today, in 2026, David Harlan is still listed as missing by the United States government. Officially, his fate remains unknown. A few defectors who have reached South Korea in recent years have whispered stories about an American man seen in one of the camps, an older foreigner with gray hair who once tried to film the truth. Whether he is still alive, whether he still remembers his name, whether any part of the man who left Ohio in 2018 remains inside that uniform with the number 4721, no one outside the regime truly knows. The North Korean government has never acknowledged his existence inside the camp system. The United States has never been able to secure his release. He became one more invisible victim of a regime that punishes curiosity, truth, and the simple desire to show the world what it does not want seen. David Harlan went to North Korea because he believed the truth matters. He believed that if enough people saw the reality inside those camps, something might change. Instead, the truth cost him everything: his freedom, his family, and possibly his life. This is not just one man's tragedy. It is a reminder of what happens when a regime decides that human beings are disposable. It is a reminder that some places on Earth still operate as if the rest of the world does not exist. And it is a reminder that courage sometimes leads to places from which there is no return. If David Harlan is still alive somewhere behind those fences, I hope he knows that people have not forgotten him. And if he is no longer with us, I hope his story helps keep the light on for those who remain trapped in silence. Thank you for watching this story all the way to the end. It means more
than you know. If it moved you, please like this video and subscribe to the channel so we can keep bringing these important stories to light. Share it with someone who needs to understand what real oppression looks like. Hopeful, may God bless you and keep you and your loved ones safe. Stay strong, stay curious, and never take your freedom for granted. Until next time, take care.